Now, batch 557. Somebody had asked a short time ago when we did hash browns and rice, the dry ones, if we'd tried Cheerios and how much water they had in them. Well, at that exact same time, these were on sale. So we're going to try them. We'll put a box of them on each tray, weigh it, put them through the cycle, and see how much they lose, if anything. It could be interesting. And I'm taking notes, so you know I'm not just screwing around, I'm doing science. Because that's the difference. If you're not taking notes, you're just screwing around. You have notes and making video, you're doing science. So I'm going to just put one bag on each tray, and again with these I'm not going to bother with the parchment paper because it's just a really dry thing, and we're just going to pour the whole thing into a Mylar bag when we're finished. We're not going to do individual bagging, as far as I know. And these are the 10.8 ounce box, and it looks like it is going to be pretty full, but I also know there's not much water in them, if anything, so I'm not worried about water amounts in them. Well, it'd be kind of interesting to see how much water's in them, if anything. So tray 1, make sure it's not touching that one. 1058. Tray 2. Tray 3. All right, tray 4. 1062. So I'll just tuck a thermometer in each one of them, and then we'll move them over to the freeze dryer. Again, totally unnecessary, but at least I can see what's happening in there. With these, I'm going to assume that they don't really need any freeze time because there's no liquid water in there. There's, if any, there's very little water in there. I assume at the most it'll be kind of like the rice or the oatmeal, but because of the bag they were in, it might even be less. However, I do want to make sure that the barrel itself is all the way cold so that the moisture can desublimate, I guess it is, onto the barrel. And right now it's only about 20 to 30 degrees below zero. I want to get it back down to 40 degrees below. But it won't take very long. So we'll get those in there and see how long that takes. Okay, we'll get them closed up in there. Now it's going to be at least a couple hours. So I do want to make sure I've got a ring around there completely, and I do. So I was going to get ready for my little palette knife and push the seal out, but it's already got a ring around there. So I don't have to worry about ice forming around that seal now because I can see that ring. We'll be back later. Won't take all that long because there just isn't that much water in there. And then after that we'll be doing another low water one. So you can do quite a few super low water ones in a row without defrosting because it just doesn't build up enough water. There's only a couple of ounces of water in there. So not a problem yet. Be right back, don't go away. The machine finished a while ago. I don't know how long ago because I wasn't here and so I don't know. It did go through the small batch cycle, and so it's only been a total of 17.5 hours since I started it. And it had about a 4-hour freeze time, so I only had enough time to just barely go through the small batch cycle and get to here. Anyway, it finished a while ago, and since I don't know how long ago, I wouldn't know if it's too cold to take them out and have to worry about condensation. But because I have thermometers in the food on the trays, I can look. They're still 60 or 70 degrees. So that's kind of on the lower end of what I like to have before I take them out. But since I know I'm going to put them back in for 2 hours, I'm not going to worry about it very much. And with these Cheerios, they could have basically no moisture because of the way they were bagged. So it's just a test to find out what they have, because one person had asked, what about the moisture level in Cheerios? So yeah, I'll do a whole video because one person asked. Anyway, we'll get them out and check them and find out how much they lost, if anything. So open the drain valve. And I'm still going to switch tray 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, so the tray is definitely cool, but it's not real cold, so it doesn't look like it's too much of a problem. Okay, 1060, so it has lost maybe 9 grams, 8 or 9 grams already, so that's interesting. Okay, tray 2. 1056, and that's lost whatever the thermometer weighs. That's what this has lost, because right now with the thermometer in, it weighs the same as it did without the thermometer before it went in the freeze dryer. So it's lost 1 thermometer weight, which I think is about 8 or 9 grams, somewhere between 8 and 10 grams. So tray 2 I'm going to put on top, and tray 1 I'll put down below. And tray 3, and this tray is definitely cooler, and it's 1051, and so that's about a 7 or 8 gram loss. And tray 4, that tray is cold, 1065. Yeah, this one's cold. I would be concerned about this one getting condensation on it. In fact, I think I can feel a little bit on the bottom of the tray. So tray 4, I'll put up on that one. And tray 3 will come down to here. Okay, so we'll get that restarted. So I'm going to add more time. Close the drain valve. Drain valve is closed. Continue. Okay, so that lets me know when I get to here, this is a countdown for cooling the pump, and it says about 5 minutes, so that means it finished 55 minutes ago. So that's how long it took to get from 120 degrees down to 60 or 70 degrees. Okay, so I'll continue. And I'm going to bump it up to 3 hours, 3 1/4. So the heaters will be on for 3 hours of that, or it'll be in the drying process for 3 hours. I gave it 3 more hours. I don't know if I'll take it out in 3 hours or in 2 hours or 4 hours. It depends on what I'm doing. So I'll either add or subtract time depending on when I can get back to it. So then we'll come back and check it later. Don't go away. We'll be right back. So the timer's down to about 30 minutes. So it's been however long that's been. 2 3/4 or 3 3/4. I don't remember how long they set it for. Anyway, and it says once again we owe the universe pressure because it shows a negative pressure, which of course it's not real. It's a calibration issue. So we'll get them out of there and check them. I'm going to assume they're going to be dry. And if they are, we're going to bag them in big Mylar bags. They're relatively thin. I wouldn't use them for any normal long-term storage, but they seem like they're good enough for a couple of years. And with this cereal, that should be plenty. And it should be at least as good as the bag they came in. So we'll get them out and check them. You see, it says 124 degrees now on that one. And the thermometer up there, they all show at least 110 degrees to 130 degrees. And it's showing a pressure that's negative, which of course isn't true. But it tells you that it's a very low pressure. And we'll bypass the rest of that with the down arrow. And open the drain valve. And get that back up. Hey. Get them out and check them. So starting with tray 1, and that is a toasty tray, and it's gone down in that amount of time. It's gone down about maybe 1 gram. It says 1059 and it was 1060. So if none of them are more than that, I'm going to take them out. Wow, that is a hot tray. And no change. Tray 3. It's bouncing 1050 and 1051, and it was 1051 before, so it's perhaps a fraction of a gram. And tray 4. And make sure it's not touching anything. And it's not. And it's still the same. Well, it's bouncing down again. 1064. So it could be a part of 1 gram also. Okay. So those are definitely dry enough to take out and bag. We're not stopping the machine, once again, not defrosting it or anything. There's just no need for it. Going to just close it up, leave it running until we're ready for the next thing, and then we'll just start. Then we'll just stop and then restart right away so that it stays cold. We'll move those over to bag them and come back and get the time and power usage for these. For those Cheerios, it has 20.5 hours on here, but we know that they were done at least 2 or 3 hours ago. So I'll subtract, how about 3 hours, so 17.5. And then I'm going to go ahead and stop this with no defrost and then restart it immediately. So no defrost. Then I'm going to hit customize, start custom, and continue. And then we'll check the drain valve, make sure it's closed, and make sure that the seal has a seal ring. The seal does not have a ring all the way around it, so I'm going to use the palette knife and give it a little twist to kind of squish that seal against the door. All right, now we have a seal ring all the way around. And with the seal ring all the way around, I don't have to worry about ice getting forming along that seal. Now we'll check the power usage for for the Cheerio batch. The power usage for the Cheerios was 11.92 kilowatt hours. And I'll reset it. Ready for the next one. The cooling of the freeze dryer, the way it's sitting right now, is taking about 338, 339 watts. Okay, so there's the 4 boxes of Cheerios. We'll get the final weights of the Cheerios without the thermometers in. So tray 1, 1050, and tray 2, 1047, tray 3, it's 1042, and tray 4, and the skewered ones, and 1055. So the total water loss on all 4 bags combined was just 31 grams. So Cheerios are pretty darn dry. 31 grams, so it's still over 2.5% in water weight. So that's interesting too. So it's very, very dry, but it still has some water in. Again, this one's more of a science thing than anything else. That's why I'm taking notes, so you know I'm not just screwing around. And these, we're going to bag these in a relatively thin Mylar bag. These are some old ones that we bought, and they seem to do well for a year or two for some kinds of items. I wouldn't recommend these thinner ones for the long-term storage, but they work for this kind of thing, I think. And I think the whole bag should fit in here, I'm hoping. So they have a zipper top, but they're a fill from the bottom. So I've got the batch number and what it was and the date that it went in. I'm not going to worry about any water weight because you wouldn't ever rehydrate them like that. Okay, so I'm going to hope I can just... Oh, I don't know if that's going to work. Okay, well, I'm going to try just kind of pushing them in there and shaking it down, because once the top edge is in there, then they'll fall in, and then I'm not worried about it. Oh, well, that was much easier than I expected. Okay, and then I think since we're going to bag them, I'll go ahead and add an oxygen absorber to them because, you know, I'm doing this far, might as well add that too. So I'll get all 4 of them ready. And I'm just kind of shaking it as I pull the tray up and they're falling right in there. That worked out pretty well. So, bags of Cheerios. And on these thin bags, I need to turn it down. So normally I run this, with this particular machine, it goes from 0 to 8. And usually I run it around 6, 6.5. I'm going to turn it clear down to 4 for this bag. On these, I'm using the 500cc oxygen absorbers. I've got a fresh pack of them, but I'm going to use up all these little packs that have 1s and 2s and 4s. And then I'll put all of these little sensors in the bag with what's left because I like to see them in there. There's one for this one, and I'm going to go ahead and seal it as I do each one so the oxygen absorber doesn't stay hanging out. And I'm going to roll this over the top because these thinner bags tend to wrinkle more. So I'm going to roll it over the top and hold it on this other side so it has a nice smooth seal area there. Oh, and where's that one spot? Okay, and I'm avoiding that spot because that's a hot spot. So I'm avoiding that, moving it over. And I'm going to let it cool for a few seconds before I open it. And then I'll check it with this thinner bag to make sure that it's sealed well. Okay, we have a good seal line across there, and because I have plenty of space to do it, I'm going to go ahead and add another one down lower. Make sure I have a super wide seal area on there. Okay, so now well sealed. Got a bag of Cheerios that has had the 7 or 8 grams of water pulled out of it, whatever that particular bag had. And so it's storable at least as long as it was before, and maybe more. Okay. So again, making sure I've got a nice smooth seal area. The last 2. Get those in there and get them sealed. And you could try to squish out as much air as you can, but I'm not going to worry about it too much because the oxygen absorbers are big enough to handle this volume easily. But the more you got out, then the less you'd have to worry about that. So ultimately, it would be a good thing to vacuum these out or use a straw and suck out the extra air or whatever. But you could do, like we've done on some, if you put the bag at an angle, so you leave a little piece of it open and seal most of it. Then you could use the seal-a-meal with the accessory little hose, or like this, just a straw. So now I've got the straw into that space. I can kind of wrap the bag around the straw a little bit to help seal it, and then just suck out the air. And then I can just fold the bag to keep the air from getting back in until I seal it. So that's one way you can get the extra air out without any kind of vacuum system. Just use a straw. It doesn't get as much air out as a vacuum system would, but it gets the majority of the air out. You can see I should have flattened it out, because now that's not going to change shape. Whereas these other ones, you can kind of flatten them out for easier storage. That's all I'm going to do with these. They're not going into a storage bin or anything. They're going back to the people that brought them over. And I'm going to move on to yet another thing that has almost no moisture in it for the next batch. So that will happen in just seconds, so don't go away. It'll be on the next video. Because the freeze dryer doesn't need to defrost. It has very little water in it, and it's already cold. So this is a perfect time to do a bunch of batches that need or have almost no water in them. So if you want to do your dry hash brown potatoes, your dry pre-cooked rice, minute rice, any of those kinds of things, is a perfect time to do a bunch of batches over and over, because you can do them in just a relatively few hours. Okay, that's it for those.